Okay, we welcome back to the Tefilah Shiur. We just had to run off to a site to the miklat because we had a siren here. We had already started, but we hadn't actually. We were just about to start the Tachanun bit. I'll just recap very quickly because I'm not going to leave you with a recording with 10 minutes of nothingness. So we started by saying. Tying up a loose end of why we say Shalom Rav, the Ashkenazim, instead of Sim Shalom at Mincha. And the answer is because Sim Shalom reflects Birchat Kohanim, which we don't do at Mincha. And the reason we don't do it at Mincha is because the Kohanim could have drunk alcohol and therefore they don't duchen. The other loose end was what we do when we only have one Kohen and he happens to be a Chazan, the Chazan. He turns around and does Birchat Kohanim from his place, and somebody else calls out the words for him. Okay, that was the sort of very brief summary of what we did before the siren. We're now about to go and talk about Tachanun.
We're doing Rabbi Mar, I think, Johnny.
Yes, that's right. So I'm going to put on, I was trying to find Brachot Tet Zion, and I think that is it. I think that is it now. Just tell me whether you've got that now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so I just need to find it in the thing here. 16b of Brachot. Now, what we found in last week's Shiur was that the Elokai Natsor prayer that we say at the end of the Shemona Esra is the last of 11 different versions in the Gemara of a personal prayer that individual rabbis said at the end of their Amidah. So the Gemara begins over here. The Gemara describes how after Rabbi Elazar concluded his prayer, he said the following additional prayer. Here we go. And it says, blah, 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 blah. All sorts of different things. And then it says, another 10 of them. 11 different rabbis gave a version of what they personally said at the end of their Amidah. The last one of those was Mar bar Ravina, and he said the following: Mar Bered Ravina. When he finished, he said, Elohai Natzol Shoni Meira Usvatayim V'daber Mirma, which we are very familiar with as the end of the Elokai Natzol. So we went through that in some detail last week. Right at the end of last week's Shiur, Hannah came up with an absolute perler and found that the prayer that we say right at the beginning of davening, if I may, Goldie, right at the beginning of davening, after Birchat HaShachar, we say the following, which you will recognize. Yeah? Recognize that? It's immediately after Baruch Atah Adonai Hagomer Chasadim Tovim Le'amo Yisrael. Have a look in your Sidurim. Immediately after what we call Brachot, you will see this Yehi Ratzon. And if you look in either the footnote or at the side over here, you will see Brachot Tet Zion. And it says this is known as Tfilat Rebbe. And if we look in our Gemara here, we will find that this is in this same, there we go, Rebbe, it's on the screen for you now, Zoomers. Rabbi, that means Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. When he finished his prayer, he said this one, etc. That is one of the 11. And then, if that wasn't enough, Johnny Halpin, during the week, came up with an even further perler. And he's found that there is another one of those 11 that we say on a regular basis. And it is the one that Rav says. It's on the screen for you now. And Rav, his personal prayer has been adopted. And I'll ask you the question before I say it to you. We say it 11 times a year. That was the question that Johnny Halpin asked me. Benching Rosh Chodesh. Very good, Frank. And it goes like this. Rav said at the end of his prayer, Yehi ratzon milefanecha Adonai Eloheinu, shetiten lanu chaim arukim, chaim shel shalom, chaim shel tova, chaim shel bracha, chaim shel parnasa, chaim shel chilot tzatzomas, etc. Amazing. How many of you, I certainly didn't, knew that that came from Brachot 16 in the same way as Elokeinu Tzor and the beginning one that Hannah found? Absolutely amazing. So that's 3 out of the 11. So what I thought we would do is let's have a look at the other 8 and see if there's any, see if they are incorporated into our davening at all. I haven't done this. I had intended to do it before the Shiur, but the reason we had to make the Shiur late tonight was because my granddaughter had her Chagigat Chumash, and she was only allowed 2 people to go. And it was quite funny. She said, Ribono shel olam, eich ani machlita. Ribono shel olam, how can I decide? And then she says, Batuach Zayda, for certain Zayda. I was definitely, no question about it.
You read sweets.
Yeah, that's right, obviously. Anyway, so that's where I was. So I haven't had a chance to look at these 8, but let's look at them together and see. There may not be any of the other 8, may not be in davening, but let's have a look. These were all individual prayers, that at least 3 of which we have adopted. And we'll see if we've got the time. It does actually lead into Tachanun, which is what I wanted to start today. So the first one is Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar, he began. See if this rings a bell with you at all. Yehi ratzon milefanecha Adonai Eloheinu sheteshakein b'pureinu ahava v'achava v'shalom v'reyut. Sheva brachot. Sheva brachot. I mean, it's not the exact thing, but there's a section in there which has been lifted into Sheva brachot, isn't it? V'tarbeh gevuleinu b'talmidim v'tatzliach sofeinu acharit v'tikva v'tasim chalkeinu b'gan Eden takneinu b'chaver tov v'yetzer tov b'olamecha v'nashkim v'nimsa yichul. It's a nice prayer. I'll just translate it for you. It's a translation here on the screen, which makes it easier. May it be your will, Lord our God, to cause to dwell in our lot love and brotherhood, peace and friendship. Shalom, what was it? Again? Ava v'achva shalom v'reyot. Okay? And may you make our borders rich in disciples and cause us to ultimately succeed. We'll have a good end and hope. May you set our portion in Gan Eden. I don't recognize any of that. So, number 1 is Rabbi Elazar. We've got that in Sheva Brachot. Right, number 2, Rabbi Yochanan. What did he say? Let's see if this rings any bells. Yehi ratzon milefanecha Adonai Eloheinu shetatzitz bevoshteinu v'tabit b'ra'atenu v'titlabesh b'rachamecha v'titkaseh b'uzecha v'titatef b'chasidecha v'titazeh b'chaninutecha v'ta'avol lefanecha midat tuvcha v'invetanuchtecha. He said, may it be your will, our God, that you look upon our shame and behold our plight. You clothe yourself in mercy and cover yourself with might. You wrap yourself in loving kindness and gird yourself with grace. May your attributes of goodness and humility come before you. I don't recognize that as a particular part of davening. Does anybody? The word anvetanuto is only, as far as I know, which means his humility.
Humility.
Yeah, but where is it said in davening, that particular word? I don't think it's lifted from here, but there is that word, which it's something that we don't say every Motzei Shabbat. There's a clue for you. What don't we say every Motzei Shabbat? Vayitin L'cha. Yes, Frank's right. It's in Vayitin L'cha, which in some places they do say. Nusach Ashkenaz is to say it in Shul. Nusach Sfard is to say the essence of Vayitin L'cha in Havdalah. You ever heard of Sfardi Havdalah? It's in it. Yeah, it's a big long thing. It starts off Rishon LeZion. Yeah, it's a whole.
In England, we said V'yitnlecha.
Sorry?
In England, we said.
Yeah. We said
V'yitnlecha.
Nusach Ashkenaz says it. V'yitn L'cha in Shul mostly. Right, so that's not one that we do. I don't think anyway. Next one, Rabbi Zera says, Yehira tzol muvnech noleinu shelo nechta v'lo nivosh v'lo nikalem.
Le'olam va'ed.
Le'olam va'ed. It doesn't say Le'olam va'ed, but you're right. You're right. Where's that from, Johnny?
It's in benching, isn't it?
Birkat Hamazon. Birkat Hamazon.
Benching.
It's in Birkat Hamazon in benching. V'lo nivosh v'lo nikalem.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a lift from there. Okay. Next one, Rabbi Chia. Yehira tzol muvnech noleinu shetehei toratcha umanutenu va'al yidve libenu va'al yechshechu einenu. Don't recognize that. May your Torah become our vocation. May our heart not become faint and our eyes not dim. I don't recognize that. The next one is Rav, which we've already said. This was Johnny Halpins. This is Titan Nanu Chaim Arukim. That's Rosh Chodesh benching. The next one is Rebbe. That's the one that Hannah found at the beginning of davening after brachas. And the one after that is Rav Safra, who said very simply, Shetasim Shalom B'Famalia Shel Mala ובפמליה של מטה ובין התלמידים העוסקים בתורתך ונושאים לשמה ואין זה נשאר לשמה בכל העוסקים שלא לשמה יהי רצון שיהיו עוסקים לשמה. Maybe your will that the Torah should be established in peace in your heavenly entourage and among the disciples who study your Torah when they engage it for its own sake or for its not own sake, and all those who engage in the Torah study for not its own sake, may it be your will that they come to engage it in for its own sake. Where's that from? Yes, a little bit in Kol Nidre, yes. But it's actually coming from Pirkei Avot. Right? There's a mission in Pirkei Avot that says when you start to learn Torah shelo lishma, not for its own sake, eventually you'll come to learn it for its own sake. So that is a Pirkei Avot, which I think predates this. So he's taken that from Pirkei Avot, maybe. Rabbi Alexandri, he said this one. May you stand in the light of horn of light. And don't make us stand in a dark corner. Okay, that's okay. We don't know that one. And then we've got Rava. Now then, this one we know. Rava we know. Elohai, ad shelo notzarti eini kadai. Va'achshav shenotzarti ki'ilu lo notzarti.
Rosh Hashanah?
Not Rosh Hashanah, no, but you're very close.
Yom Kippur.
Kal v'chomer b'mitati.
Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur, it's the end of Vidui in Yom Kippur. May God, before I was created, I was worthless. Now that I've been created, it is as if I had not been created. I am no more significant. I am dust in life, all the more so in my death. Yeah, this is very, very familiar to us. The end of Vidui, the end of in Yom Kippur. So that's at least 4 or 5 that we've found that we know of out of these 11. And then we've got Ma Bereda Ravina, the last one, which is Elokainat, so the one that we're familiar with from the end of the Shemona Esra. So at least 5, I think. What about Rabbi Yishmael? Rabbi Yishmael is not on this daf. That's a different piece of Gemara. So out of this piece of Gemara, which is on 16b and 17a in Brachot, we have lifted, or the Anshe Knesset Agdola, or whoever it was that, no, it wouldn't have been the Anshe Knesset Agdola because that predates the Gemara. So Chazal, when they put together the prayers, which of course have evolved over the centuries, have gone to this section of Gemara and have found very fertile ground for for the prayers. And I think that's really excellent. Now, how does that lead us into Tachanun? Okay, so in order to understand how that leads into Tachanun, we have to understand what Tachanun is. What does the word Tachanun mean? Frank says supplication.
Pleading.
Pleading, okay. I personally like the word pleading better than supplication, only because I don't ever use the word supplication in everyday language, whereas pleading I understand. But yeah, that's what Tachanun means. Tachanun, what's the root of it?
Chanun.
Chanun. Adonai, Adonai, El, Erech Apayim, Rachum, Chanun. Tachanun. Okay. Chanun. What does Chanun mean? Gracious. It's the same word root as Chen. We've said this many, many times in this shiur. What is Chen? Chen is grace or favor or something for nothing. Something you don't actually deserve. So that's why Tachanun means a supplication or a pleading, because we're not actually asking for something that we think we deserve here. We're actually pleading for something that we don't actually deserve. That's why it's Tachanun. That's why it's called Tachanun. So the reason that the Elokai Netzor prayer leads in nicely into Tachanun is that the Elokai Netzor was Mar Bar Avina's version of his personal prayer. We, in later years, after Chazal, after the time of the Talmud, we're no longer able to formulate our own formal prayers. So we adopted somebody else's personal prayer. In this case, we adopted Mar Bar Avina's personal prayer at the end of Shemona Esrei. Now, what we said last week was that in Elokai Netzor, that is the place for your personal requests, your very personal requests that you have. You'll often find, actually, if you're ever watching, not particularly with our Rav, although a little bit, some Rabbonim, when you're waiting for them to finish Shemona Esrei, you think you're nearly there. You see them do Modim, and you see them do, Lechana Lehodot, and bend down. And you think, all right, I'm nearly there now. I'll just get myself ready. And you're waiting, and you're waiting, and you're waiting, because they get to Elokai Netzor, and they're busy with their personal tefillot to Hashem, because that's the time to do it. Tachanun is a supplication to God. It's the next rung of the ladder, if you like. It's the another personal prayer. Now we have to have a look and see when did Tachanun get put into the davening? Much, much later. Have a guess when Tachanun was introduced into the davening. You'll be surprised when I tell you. I was surprised when I read it anyway. It only became part of the standardized text that we have, only became part of davening in the 16th century. That's really late, right?
But where? Who by?
By, well, okay, let me read you what this, I'm going to read you a little bit of this. This is by a chap called Ronald L. Eisenberg. I don't know who he is, but I know what he is, because it says so at the end of the article. He is a publisher or an author of the JPS. You know what the JPS is? It's the Jewish Publication Society. It's an American. It's a bit like, I think it's a bit like the JPS is a little bit. The JPS Siddur in America is like the equivalent of the singers. You know, it's like their official, the official. I don't know if it's the OU or whatever it is. It's an American Rabbinical Society. Anyway, this guy Ronald L. Eisenberg, who's obviously a clever fellow, he writes like this: Tachanun is a prayer unit containing confessions of sins and petitions for God's grace and mercy, that is recited immediately after the reader's repetition of the Amidah in the morning and afternoon services on weekdays. The Talmudic sages added personal appeals to God after the prescribed prayers. And he puts in brackets the source of that, Brachot 16b and 17a. A custom that gradually was adopted by most worshippers, who added their own prayers after the formal services concluded, meaning after the Amidah had concluded. Now, after the Chazarat HaShatz, there's no Elokai Netzor, right?
No, it stops.
You stop at Hamavarech Amo Yisrael B'Shalom, and then you do Tachanun. So the Tachanun of the Chazarat HaShatz is the equivalent of the Elokai Netzor for the private prayer. It's a public, everyone gets involved in it then. It is the supplication. And then it says, these prayers were optional for centuries, and when offered, were a spontaneous outpouring from the heart in which worshippers expressed their innermost thoughts and concerns. A standardized text for Tachanun became part of the congregational service only in the 16th century, which is really late in terms of the Siddur.
Is that implying that before it was introduced, there was a period after the repetition that people just had time
Yeah,
to do their
I
own
think
thing?
that's exactly what it, I think that's it.
But why do you need it twice? If you've had the opportunity at the end of your siren, why do you need to pause or even add in Tachanun? You've had the opportunity.
Is it
to say
because on repetition, that's when people that it was done because they couldn't formulate the
Yeah, the people who couldn't say their own prayers have only just been yotze with the Tefilah.
But this is a person, it's not a prescribed.
Yeah, they wouldn't have said they
Text
wouldn't have
anyway.
that.
No, that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, Jeff, what Jeff's saying is that the idea of the personal prayer comes after the Amidah, after the formal interview, if you like, or audience, not interview, that's not the right word, audience with the king. You've said your prescribed prayers. You then get an opportunity at the end, and that's the Elokai Netzor that we say, or that Ma Bar Ravina said. Those nebuchs that can't say their own Shemona Esra have not yet done their prescribed prayers, and they have done so by saying Amen to your Chazarat HaShatz. They also then have an opportunity to do it. Now, you don't want to be singling them out and saying, right, okay, every idiot that didn't know how to Daven, now's your chance. Off you go. You do Tachanun. So, of course, we all do it. So that's how it developed. I'm only telling you how it developed. Whether you'd like it or not, I can't help you. You can pull as many faces as you like. That's the fact.
Why do we do the video here and not in England?
Okay, so it's not a matter of here or England so much as a matter of Nusach Ashkenaz and Nusach Sfard. Let's okay, we'll answer that.
Why can't we see you?
Why can't you see me? I don't know.
Yeah.
You should be able to see me. I'll stop.
Because you've got the script on the.
How about that? Can you see me now?
No, I can see curtailed.
I'm still sharing the screen with the.
Oh, why can't you see me? You can see Tefilah, but you can't see me. Oh well, never mind. I don't know why you can't see me. It must be something to do with the. Yeah, it's a result. You're right. Don't know. Anyway, you know what I look like. So you'll just have to listen. Where were we? Vidui. Yes. So before you ask for your grace and favor, Warren, what we do, or what the Sephardim do, is they admit that actually they're not worthy, by saying Vidui. What is Vidui? Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu. We've done all these things. Now, Nusach Ashkenaz Tachanun begins with Vayomer David al Gad, which we will come to. We'll talk about Vayomer David al Gad in a minute. Even if you are davening Nusach Ashkenaz and you are not saying Vidui, but if you are in a place where they are saying Vidui, what do? We've had this discussion before about when you are like me, for
Do you
example.
wait for the
So-
finish and then you start together
Okay,
when
so for example, somebody like me who davens Nusach Ashkenaz, I'm here in a Nusach Sfard shul. The basic rule is anything which is said out loud, I have to join in with the Nusach Sfard. So Kedusha, I have to do
inside.
in the Nusach Sfard. The Vayatzmach B'Korov Mikorov Mishichei, I have to say Amen to that. Can't just say, well, I'm not saying Amen because it's not in my Kaddish, right? So the things that are said out loud, you have to do in the Nusach where you are, where everybody else is doing. The things that you do quietly, you can say in your own Nusach. Now, Tachanun is a bit tricky because there are a few different minhags. First of all, Nusach Sfard say Vidui, and they're all doing this, right? That's a public thing. It's not really a public thing because you're doing it to yourself, but everyone can see. Basically, it would be obvious if I didn't do it, right? So should I do it? That's the question. The next thing is when we come to Nefilat Apayim. What's Nefilat Apayim?
On your face. Putting your face on your elbow.
Nefilat means to fall. Yeah, Nefilat is a fall. Apayim, your face. Actually, apayim actually means your noses.
Okay.
Af is your nose. But it means Nefilat Apayim is the description of this, of putting your hand on you. You can't see me on Zoom, but I'm putting my hand on my head like we do for Tachanun. That's called Nefilat Apayim. Have a look tomorrow when you're here. Well, you can't actually have a look while you're doing it because you're doing it. But just before you do it, have a look around and you'll see that the Sephardim don't do it. The Sephardi minhag as opposed to Nusach Sfard. Sephardim don't do Nefilat Apayim at Tachanun. Okay, but they do Vidui. So there we got a whole mishmash. And when it comes to Monday and Thursday, when we have a long Tachanun, I'll ask you the question why we have a long Tachanun on Monday and Thursday in a minute. But when we have a long Tachanun, Nusach Ashkenaz and Nusach Sfard do it in all a different order. Okay, Nusach Ashkenaz begins with Vahu Rachum and then goes on to Vayoma David. Nusach Sfard does Vayoma David and then Vahu Rachum. Now Vayoma David, we're down here like this. So if I'm here doing my Nusach Ashkenaz and you're all down there and I'm stood up for Vahu Rachum, that's probably not right, is it? And then I'm down there where you're stood up, and it's all a big mishmash, and you shouldn't have a mishmash. So really, scrap it. Frank says don't bother at all. So the truth is that you should, for those things that are public, you have to really do the nusach of the shul, of the place that you are. But the question still remains as to why now in Eretz Yisrael, some Nusach Ashkenaz communities do Vidui. In the same way as some Nusach Ashkenaz communities in Israel do say Sim Shalom at Mincha. So it's a bit confusing. So
Can I just say, Johnny, that if you're davening without a minyan, I don't think you do falling on your arm. Is that
okay,
right?
we'll go into that in a minute. The actual, we'll go through the choreography of it in a minute, or maybe not in a minute, maybe next week. But in the meantime, let's just start with Vidui. So we say Vidui, and then what do we say after Vidui? Vidui is Hashamnu Bagadnu. Then we say V'yavo Hashem al panav vayikra. And we say the 13 midot. Now, even if you are a Nusach Ashkenaz diehard and you are not going to do Vidui before your Tachanun, when it comes to Hashem Keil Rachum B'Chanun, you have to say it out loud with the rest of the community, even though it's not part of your Tachanun. Why?
Affirmation.
It's affirmation. That's absolutely right. Because if you don't, it looks to the onlooker. Everybody is saying, Hashem Keil Rachum B'Chanun. What? And Lieberman's not saying it? Does he not believe that? It's the same way when somebody says Shema Yisrael, you have to join in. When the community, if you walk in and you're a bit late, right? not that you ever would be, but if you were a bit late, right, and you walked in and they were up to Shema, either the first Shema or even the second Shema,
Very late.
if you were very late, and they're just saying Shema and you haven't done anything yet, you have to join in. It's affirmation. Okay, it's absolutely affirmation. Kedusha's another one. You're familiar with that, right? You all know that if you walk into shul, wherever you're up to, if they're up to Kedusha, you stop and you join in, right? Unless you happen to be in the middle of Shemona Esrei, in which case you stop and stay silent. But there are certain things that are affirmation, meaning that if you don't say it, it's as if you deny it. So Shema Yisrael, Kedusha, which is talking about the holiness of Hashem as said by the angels, and Hashem Kel Rachum V'Chanun. These are things that you have to say, even if it's not in your nusach. So, for somebody who is nusach Ashkenaz davening in a nusach Sfard shul, he may not do vidui. Okay, to do that is not so public. It's not so obvious. But he has to say Hashem Kel Rachum V'Chanun. That he has to say. And then we go into Vayoma David El Gad. Where is Vayoma David El Gad come from? Where does it come from? Anybody know? It comes from Shmuel Bet. That's right. It comes from Shmuel Bet. Let me get it up on the screen for you, and then I'll read it. Shmuel Bet, chapter 24.
We're nearly up to there, aren't we?
Well, we're on chapter 1. No, we're on chapter 2. So
Chapter 2, yeah.
it depends how you call near, what you call near.
We're not in Shmuel Aleph anymore.
No, this is Shmuel Bet. This is Shmuel Bet. Shmuel Bet 24, verse 14. There it is on the screen for you. Vayoma David al Gad Tsa li ma'od. Did we not have that in the Tanakh share this week? Tsa li ma'od.
Yes.
And I think you, Hannah, said that that's something that we say in modern Hebrew. When somebody passes away and you want you to console somebody, in English you'd say, I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, I'm sorry to hear of your loss. I'm sorry for your loss, or whatever the expression is. In Hebrew, you would say tsar li ma'od. So when I write an announcement that says, I'm sorry to have to inform you that so-and-so has passed away, the Hebrew version is tsar li ma'od lahodia lachem. Tsar, what's tsar?
Pain.
Pain.
Sorrow.
What's
Sorrow.
What's a plural of tsar?
Sorrow.
Sarot.
Sarot. How would you say tsarot in Yiddish, Goldie?
Surah.
Surus. Same word. It's just the Yiddish pronunciation.
Right.
So tsar is the singular of tsurus. Tsar li means I've got tsurus. Right? Tsar li, it pains me. Tsar li ma'od, it pains me very much. Okay, so that's what the expression means. Now,
It's actually the same in English as in English, because sorrow and sorry are sort of very similar. I'm sorry to hear that, or I have great sorrow, which is the translation of the Hebrew.
yes, I think you're absolutely right. Sorrow and sorry are the same word. Yeah, Jeff didn't know that. Yeah, sorrow. Sorry means I have sorrow about what I've done to you. Yeah, correct, Hannah. Yes. So what is this tsar li mode? Vayoma David al Gad tsar li mode. Who was Gad, first of all? Who was Gad? It's not God as in G-O-D. Who was Gad? He was an advisor. He was actually a prophet. He took over from, who did he take over from? No, we had one in between. Shmuel? Natan, correct. Natan took over from Shmuel. Natan was the one that gave David what for about Bathsheba, which we will come to rather soon in a few weeks' time. And then after Natan, we had Gad. He was the prophet. So Vayoma David al Gad. David said to Gad, Tsar li ma'od. I am greatly troubled. It is on the screen for you here. I am greatly oppressed. Let us fall now into the hand of the Lord, for his mercies are great. but into the hand of man let me not fall. I shall read the Hebrew of that pasuk for you. You might recognize it. Vayomer David el Gad, tzali ma'od, nipala na b'yad Adonai ki rabim rachamav, uvayad Adam el epola. Recognize that? Should do. It's the first sentence of Tachanun.
Yeah. But
Okay.
why does he say us rather than me? It's sort of implying that God also has.
Okay, I'll tell you why. First of all, you have to know what the story is. What's this story going on here that this was the culmination of? So, David did a few things that he shouldn't have done. One of them we know was with Bathsheba. What was one of the other things he did? It's on the screen for you, those who are watching on Zoom, verse 10. What did he do? There is a mitzvah, a mitzvah lo ta'aseh, in Sefer Shmot, chapter 30.
Not to count the people.
Not to count the people. You're not allowed to count Jews. That's why we say Hoshea et Amecho Varechet Nachlaser Urim Minasim Ada Olam when we're counting for a minyan, right? You don't count people. You don't count Jewish people. It's a mitzvah. It's an aveira to count Jewish people. And that's why when we did do a census, how did they do the census with a shekel? So you're counting half shekels. You're counting half shekels. You're not counting people, right? And and I've heard people say, oh, not one, not two, not three. But the concept is you don't count people. David did count people. He counted. He wanted to know how many there were of the army, and he counted them directly. And then he says, just a little bit before our Tachanun, Vayach lev David oto achrei kein sfarat ha'am. And David's heart smote him. In other words, he felt bad after he'd counted the people. Vayomer David el Hashem, and David said to Hashem, Chatati ma'od asher asiti. I have sinned greatly in what I have done. And as a by the way, this is what makes David the great king, because he is one of the few leaders in history who has admitted when he's done wrong. How often do you see that in modern day, that a leader would ever admit that he did wrong? Never. It doesn't occur. That's what makes a great leader. A great leader is someone.
Actually, in the British government, people do resign after they're caught doing something wrong.
They fall on their sword. They resign. Yes, they fall on their sword. This is not falling on the sword. This is saying, I've done wrong. Now, listen what he says next. Va'ata, with an ayin. And now, Hashem, he'evana et avon avdacha ki niskalti ma'od. Hashem, please put aside the iniquity of your servant, because I was very foolish. And he's saying, I've sinned. Forgive me. Put my sin to the side. And Vayakom David baboker. David got up the next morning. Udvar Hashem haya el Gad hanavi. And the word of Hashem came to the prophet Gad. Lemor, saying, Haloch v'dibarta el David. Go and speak to David. Ko amar Hashem. So says Hashem, Shlosh anochi notel alecha. Bechar lecha achat mehem ve'esalach. It's almost like a joke, this. Hashem says to God, Hashem says to Gad, right? Go and tell David, you've got a choice, mate. I'm giving you a choice of 3 punishments. You can choose which one you want. I mean, it's a bit weird, this, isn't it, really? Hashem says through his prophet to David, you've got a choice of punishments. Choose what you want. Vayavo God el David. God came to David. Vayagedlo, and he said to him, Vayoma lo, what would you prefer? Hatavo lecha sheva shanim ra'av ba'artzecha. Would you rather 7 years of famine in your land? Im shlosha chadashim nuscha lifnei tzarich v'hu rodfecha. Ve'im, okay, yeah. Or would you like 3 months that you shall flee from your oppressor while he pursues you? Or im hayot shloshet yamim dever ba'artzecha, or 3 days of pestilence in your land. Ata, now, da, think about it, or ei ma'ashiv sholchi davar. Think about it and tell me what I should reply to God, to Hashem. So Gad said, the words of Hashem through Gad, 7 years of famine, 3 months that you'll run away from your oppressor, or 3 days of pestilence in the land. Now then, you're David HaMelech.
I'll take the 3 days of pestilence.
Yeah,
Warren's going to take the 3 days of pestilence. What are you
me
taking?
too.
Hannah's with Warren. What are you taking, Jeff?
Well, I was going to take the pestilence. I say it sounds.
Jeff's taking the pestilence. Charlie? Charlie doesn't know. Frank?
3 months.
Frank's he's going for the oppressors. What about you, Goldie? Okay, well, let's have a look. Let's have a look.
What would you take?
Well, I know what David says is not fair. Okay. So,
Well, 7 years is a long time.
so
Being chased by somebody who hates me, been there, done that, don't want to do that again. So
well, that's more or less what David said. Did you hear what Hannah said? Hannah says, I don't want to be chased by somebody who hates me. I've done that, been there. He's had Shaul chasing him for half his life. Listen to what he says. Vayomer David al Gad. Familiar? Tsar li ma'od. I am greatly distressed. Nipla na b'yad Hashem. Let me fall, or let us fall, meaning the people, into the hand of Hashem. Ki rabim rachamav. Because his mercy is great. Uvayad Adam, and into the hand of a person, al epola. Let me not fall. So he says, no, I don't want yours, Frank. He doesn't choose yours. He doesn't want the oppressor. He wants to choose the punishment from Hashem. So, Vayiten Hashem deva beYisrael me'aboker ad 8 moed. Hashem sent a pestilence upon Israel from morning until the appointed time. And how many people died, do you think, in that pestilence? Good guess, but not right. I would have guessed 24,000 because that is a common number for people to die. 24,000 pupils of Rebbe Akiva. 24,000 people died in the Pinchas affair. Yeah, 70,000. Shivim elef ish. A lot of people. Okay, so why are we saying this verse?
70,000 is just under 24 a day.
24,000 a day. You're right, actually. Yeah, 72 it would be 72,000. 24,000 a day would be 72,000. Why are we saying this pasuk at the beginning of Tachanun? What is Tachanun? We are throwing ourselves at God's mercy. Literally throwing ourselves at God's mercy. And we'll finish with this now. Let us fall now. Nipala na b'yad Hashem. Let us fall in the hand of Hashem. Nefilat apayim, same word. Okay, so we fall on our face here because of this word in this pasuk. Let us fall on the mercy of Hashem. That's what we're doing here. We're falling at the mercy of Hashem. Who else fell at the mercy of Hashem?
Moshe.
Moshe did on a regular basis. Correct. Moshe and Aaron did. Whenever the people sinned, what did they do? Vayiplu al pneihem. They fell on their faces. Yes. Now, there's one that you might not get, which will answer the question that you haven't yet asked me. We mentioned it.
Don't the Kohanim also, when we say Aleinu, we go down?
We do. That's true.
The Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur.
Yehoshua fell on his face in front of what? When he was seeking mercy for the people, where did he fall? In Joshua 7:6. Let me find it on the screen for you. Joshua chapter 7, verse 6. And we'll end with this here now.
Jericho, was it?
We mentioned earlier, did we not, that we that we fall on our faces only when? When do we fall on our faces for Tachanun? When do we? Somebody mentioned it. We only put our head
When we
down
have a minyan.
Presence of a safe.
in the presence of a Sefer Torah. That's right. And the reason for that is here on verse 6 on the screen. Let me just put it on the screen for the Zoomers. I think I just had it on and I've stopped it now. Let's try again. There we go. Have a look at that, everyone. This is the story of Ai. Remember the story of Ai? Joshua went over the river Jordan and conquered. The first place he conquered was Jericho. After that, they tried to conquer a place called Ai, and they failed. Why did they fail?
Because they were full of themselves.
Because somebody had taken some of the spoil from Jericho when they were told not to. And they failed in their mission in Ai, and 36 men died. And then they had this whole thing about, eventually Hashem said, well, the reason that you failed is because there's someone here who's taken the booty. And they had this whole business where they went family by family until they found the person who'd taken the booty. But when they first failed, what did Joshua do? I'll read it to you. I'll read it to you in the Hebrew and translate it. Vayikra Yehoshua simlotav, and Yoshua tore his garments. Vayipol al panav, fell on his face, arza, to the ground, lifnei Aaron Adonai, before the ark of Hashem. And that is why we only fall on our face when we're in the presence of a Sefer Torah. Because Joshua, in chapter 7, verse 6, fell on his face in front of the Aaron. And now you know the answer to the question that you have always wanted to know. Why is it that we only put our head down in front of a Sefer Torah? And it's because of that, that we do that. Right. Even with the 10 minutes break, we are out of time. And we have started Tachanun. So I think we did quite a good job there. We're going to go into a bit more Tachanun next time.
We say the Shlosh Midat though, on say Ne'era, Johnny, there's a Sefer Torah though, we don't go down.
No, we only go down for Tachanun, we don't go down for the Shlosh Esrei Midot.
It says Vayipol, we say Vayipol, I forgot
No,
the word.
we say Vayavor al Panav.
Yeah.
He passed by him. Moshe Rabbeinu was in the crack in the rock. Different thing. So we don't go down on our haunches, on our arm, and we'll go do the choreography. We'll start with the choreography. Remind me, Frank, next week. We go down on our arm at the pasuk Vayomer David al Gad Tzali Ma'od Nipelana B'Yad Hashem. Let us fall into the hands of a merciful hands of Hashem, and not fall into the hands of man. We fall at that point, and the reason we only fall where there's a Sefer Torah is because we are emulating Yehoshua. Any questions before we finish?
So if you're davening without a minyan at home with no Sefer Torah,
then you do not put your head down on your arm.
do you say Ad Hashem though?
No, you do not. You can only say Hashem Hashem with a minyan.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Ravido
You can lane Hashem Hashem, but then you have to say the whole pasuk, not stop at Venake. You have to go into the Torah verses from Parashat Ki Tisa, and you have to say the whole, and you have to lane it. You cannot allow.
If you have a Sefer Torah at home, Johnny, what do you do?
If you have a Sefer Torah at home, then you put your head down.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Without a minyan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Putting your head down is not connected with a minyan. Hashem, the Shlosh Esrei Midot is connected to a minyan because it's affirmation, and it's a Davar Sheba Kedusha, but the Tachanun is not. All right.
Yeah.